One of the things we see in state and local government these days is they're making great progress in terms of modernizing their IT infrastructure. And for years that really wasn't the case. They were budget constrained and it was a real challenge for them. But over the past 12, 18 months, we've seen some real momentum in state and local government in terms of their funding and their ability to modernize their infrastructure. And they're at a great time in the industry to be able to do that. There are a lot more options for them now in order that they can take advantage of in terms of moving their IT infrastructure forward around cloud computing and virtualization and converged infrastructure and things that weren't there a number of years ago. HP is in the forefront in developing and delivering many of those technologies around converged infrastructure, for instance, around server storage and networking, around cloud computing and options around cloud computing. Things like an EcoPod, right, where you can actually put data center in a pod in a container and locate it anywhere rather than building another concrete and mortar IT data center. So they're at a good point in terms of the evolution of technology and options they have to be able to modernize their infrastructure and to take advantage of some great things available to them today in terms of cloud computing and virtualization. So the challenge we have is that in HP, it's a broad portfolio. We cover everything from the endpoint device all the way up to the largest data center infrastructure that's out there in the commercial world and all things in between. How do you put that together in a way that makes sense for a state and local government customer of varying sizes based on their particular needs and their particular requirements around data and security and on-premise cloud or off-premise cloud? And so we spend a lot of time looking at the HP portfolio and putting that together in a way that a state and government consumer, state and local government can consume it and utilize it based on their strategic plan. Almost always cloud will be there, right? How do I take advantage of the cloud? And it's come a long way in the past, I'll say, year in terms of the maturity of their ability to look at cloud as a viable option for them. And HP offers a number of options for them in terms of on-premise, off-premise, and manage cloud and however they want to and need to consume cloud. And it varies by state. There are some real restrictions for some states in terms of their ability to consume a cloud infrastructure. Many have made great progress. Their ability to procure it. One of the challenges they've had is just the ability to buy a cloud infrastructure. Most state procurement structures are set up to buy discrete components, not software infrastructure as a service. Cloud certainly, again, back to your question, is one of the prominent things they talk about. The other is, how do I take my aging infrastructure, which may be quite old, and move that to current or next generation and essentially leapfrog where, say, many commercial customers have gone through an evolution of their IT infrastructure. How do I leapfrog that to current technology? So they're very interested in looking at some of the recent things we've introduced in terms of different server technologies, different storage technologies, the convergence of those, and essentially leapfrogging into the current or future generation technology. So there's a lot of interest there. Where do I take my infrastructure and management software? So their virtualized environments are now much more complex than they ever were before. So there's a lot of interest in management tools and software tools and management processes to help them manage this infrastructure and treat it more as a data center as a service rather than the discrete components. What we see in terms of evolution of it is really around convergence. Today, most conversations are still around servers, storage, networking, services, the different elements of an IT infrastructure. And many still approach it that way, both in terms of design, implementation, and acquisition. What we see coming is a convergence of all of those into data center or an infrastructure as a service, more like a utility, right? So in reality, do you care what compute or what storage or what network infrastructure exists behind delivering your compute capacity for your applications as a service, right? You don't. So we see a convergence of those three into an architecture, and then the challenge is, how do you manage it and how do you deploy it to meet the demands of your end users? The other thing is we see is the explosion of mobile devices, right? And every state agency has their apps and their mobile workforce, and so mobile devices and how you manage that and how you continue to scale that, because the scale of mobile access to your infrastructure consumes a lot of resources, right? Both in terms of internet access and network infrastructure needed and management tools and security. So that explosion is something that we will continue to see lots of evolution and innovation in terms of being able to meet the appetites of a mobile workforce while still maintaining the security and the control of your infrastructure that you have today.